Welcome once again to Hot Takes. And today's show promises to be intriguing. Absolutely intriguing. It's gonna be a good time on a Friday night. I hope you guys are ready. Let's just wait for a few more people to join us. Wait for them to get through some traffic and through some busy schedule to join us here this evening. Last week was absolutely amazing. Shout out to our guest of last week, Jennifer Pierce. She held it down, spoke like a true prophetess and a true woman. Dean, welcome. I see you, my brother. Waiting for some more people to join in while we get started. How you guys doing? Hello, Mimi. Hello, Delvida. Delvida, what's up? Yo. How you guys doing? Hope you're having an amazing week. Hope your week is going well, going according to your plans. I'm also waiting for our guests to join in, but yeah, today's topic is What's Next Nigeria. We're still on What's Next Nigeria, the theme What Next Nigeria, and the topic we'll be looking at today is, will the Supreme Court dispense justice? The law and technology. What a beautiful union, but it's bittersweet, as I like to describe it. The law and technology, as we've seen what played out in the past few days, especially on 25th February, where we had the presidential election, and a lot of things happened, a lot of things were said. And I feel like, Hot Takes is where we give you different perspective on different issues as it is hot. And today we have some amazing guests with us who are just, joining us right now. I can see them. And we have a technology expert. We have a legal juggernaut. We have a finance and political analyst. And it's going to be an amazing show. So relax, put on your seatbelt. I'd like to, get your contributions in the comment section, and please stay through the show because you don't want to miss any of the speakers. We are going to be taking them one after the other, and with no further ado, bringing up Abdul to talk to us on What's Next Nigeria. Will the Supreme Court give us justice? Let's bring Abdul up. Please, can you help me with your fire emojis, with your hand claps? Let's welcome Abdul. Shout out Clergyman. Shout out Banner Boy. Shout out Mabel. I see y'all. Let's get it started.
I greet you, my brother.
Abdul, what's
How
up?
far now?
I'm good, bro. I greet you especially. Hope you've been having an
Oh,
amazing
thank
week.
God. Thank God. You push and so. What's going on? Yeah, here. Yeah,
You're
I'm
in
Lagos.
Lagos, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, how's
Well,
Lagos
it's
feeling?
just calm, regardless of the noise and everything that's going on around. It's largely calm. The atmosphere is calm, really. No cause for alarm, at least from my end. I can say.
That's cool, man. I just like everybody to know, first of all, Abdul is my in-law. You guys have to know this. Abdul is my in-law before he's a political and financial analyst. And he told me my real bride price. How much did you say my bride price was?
The
What was I
original
supposed to
bride
pay?
price,
The original bride
20 naira.
price. 20 naira, bro. They
It's
scammed
scammed.
me. I married an amazing wife.
Don't be 20 naira.
I won't complain. They scammed me, bro. Well, yeah, welcome, man. Welcome. Thanks for taking your time out to be on
Yeah.
Hot Takes today. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to go, right into it because we have two other guests that are going to be with us. Someone said he paid
Yeah.
16
Okay,
naira,
bro.
bro. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this here. So the first question is, what were your thoughts on the just concluded presidential election? What did you think about it? The process, how it went down?
Okay. So let me start from the question. Let me start from a general conclusive point of view, and then I'm going to go into details. The just concluded presidential and NAS elections that we had, in my opinion, this is the freest and fairest election in Nigeria's history. And when I say that, I get a lot of people. The question is, there's a lot of there is that existing narrative that this election is probably the worst ever election that we've ever had, and I say no. I say no because there, as far as Nigeria's history is concerned, the worst election we've had in the Third Republic, right, beginning from 1999, would have to be the 2003 election. That was a sham. That was an absolute sham organized by General Olusegun Obasanjo. This election we were expecting something really spectacular, right? A high level, compared to what we saw in Kenya. We didn't get what we expected, right? But it was still better than every other election that has been conducted in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to explain why. Beavers, the most fundamental part of this election, the accreditation process, worked. I'm going to say this: never again in Nigeria's history will you see a situation where a state across the Niger, north of the Niger, is bringing up numbers like 1 point something for a candidate, 1.2, 1.3. Okay? People, it should be more. It should be less. It should be less. If you notice this election was an election, especially down south, where there was high turnout. Yet somehow the numbers were lower. Okay, the numbers were largely lower, and that is because Beavers worked. It worked the way it was supposed to.
All right, let me rush you to the next question. Beavers worked, and you think it's the freest and fairest election since '99. So what do you think about the allegations of malpractices by INEC in favor of the APC? What do you think of these allegations? Many people said there was massive rigging. They felt that they were disenfranchised. Some said they were not able to vote. And what do you think about these allegations?
There is validity to these allegations. There's no question about that. That in Nigeria's election, in the election that we call in Nigeria's polity, anywhere where a political party has some sort of advantage, it's a Nigerian problem. It's fundamentally a character problem of the Nigerian people. Wherever you have an advantage, right, you try to gain a bit more. You try to gain a bit more illegally. You try to get a bit more through the wrong means. Okay, it is true. We saw situations of gunshots. We saw the situations where people were snatching ballot boxes. We saw situations. Let me just add, right? The IREV, which is the main issue now, where results are not being able to be uploaded, right? It failed. That aspect failed. This is the reason why we are saying this election did not meet the expectation of the Nigerian people. That's the truth. That's the fact. Okay.
Sorry, to the next question. How substantial do you think these
That's what I'm going to.
malpractices are in making the election void?
So the malpractices, right, did not come from one party. To different extents, it came from it came from all the parties in the regions where they had some sort of advantage. Okay, we saw accusations against the APC in Lagos. We heard of accusations against the PDP in Akwa Ibom State. We saw some videos coming from the southeast where people were shooting and saying that the LP people didn't want them to vote. We saw a lot of all of these things. Okay, now for me, looking at some parts of Nigeria, for example, Rivers State, this does not feel right. The result coming out from Rivers State does not feel right. Okay, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And with the amount of malpractices we saw, at least, so quote unquote evidence we saw, right, coming from Rivers State that was being conducted allegedly by the governor of the state, right, in favor of the APC. I suspect that Rivers was not clear. I suspect that even maybe Akwa Ibom. I'm not sure of that. I look at Benue and I think maybe LP should have gotten a little bit more in Benue. I don't know. All right. Because when you look at the momentum, and I did a bit of a polling as a political analyst. I did a bit of polling in all of these places. The support for LP in all of these areas where it seemed other parties won, it doesn't correlate with the sentiment of the people on ground. Okay? But ultimately, I look at this election and I say, by and large, I think the APC had the highest number of votes. I believe so. I honestly believe the APC had the highest number of votes. I honestly believe, even in these places where I say I suspect things didn't go right, like Rivers, for example, maybe Akwa Ibom, possibly Benue, Bayelsa in particular, right? In all of these places, even if you switch the votes around and I say, okay, I give it to LP, it still does not swing the election in favor of the Labour Party.
All right, sorry, let me cut you a bit. The margin between the APC and the LP were about 2 million votes, right? Rivers State is said to be the third largest registered voters at the election. Isn't Rivers State, and the margin in Lagos also was not as high as people thought it should be, from what we saw, from the excitement of LP in Lagos, from the reports from different polling units. We think that margin should have been larger, and Lagos has the highest registered voters. Don't you think this could have substantially played a part in discrediting the Labour Party or the PDP from winning this election? Wasn't that substantial enough?
Okay, so I just want to pull up the voting numbers. 2023 presidential election. All right. I think when we are looking at the question of the number of voters in all of these places, I said something earlier. Beavers worked. Okay.
Yeah.
The truth. One thing I am coming to largely believe these days is that the number of the Nigerian population that is being claimed or alleged to be is not the number. We are not that high. We are not that much. The number of registered voters, right? I question the number of registered voters that we have in this country. Okay? And the numbers coming out of Rivers, I just want to get, just give me a second. I want to get the numbers. I want to get state by state.
Yeah, while you're getting it, we have some comments. Someone said that it is normal. Malpractices have always happened. It happened in the last election as well, and it has always happened. And another person pointed out that although this keeps happening,
Of
it
course.
is not right. Because while the election was going on, I saw a comment. I don't know if it's a true verified comment from the APC candidate, who is now the president-elect, saying that malpractice is normal. It's usual for something to go wrong. And also we have someone that's also informed us that registered voters is different from
Yes.
the collected PVCs and also different
Voter.
from
Exactly.
accredited voters, which played a bigger part with the beavers in
Exactly.
this year's election. So I don't know. Do you have the
Yes,
numbers
I
now?
do have the numbers. I have the numbers. And we saw that the winner in Lagos had 582,000. Okay? I think Buhari got somewhere around 700 plus in Lagos, right? In the last election. Okay? We are
Okay.
If we go to a state like, say, Kano, for example, Kano came up with 1.2, 1.3 in the last election. What was the highest number? The winner this time around won with about 997,000. Okay? High population states. Another state, let me look at Katsina. Katsina, for example. Where's Katsina on this list? All of these states were not cracking the numbers that they were cracking. Rivers State was doing in the previous election, people were getting as high as 500,000 votes. The alleged winner this time around is having somewhere around 231,000 votes. This for me is the success. This is where Beavers came into play and functioned. Yeah. And I think we should commend INEC for that. Where they did ultimately fail, where they did Katsina, we are looking at the numbers around 589,000 for the winner. When in the last election, we're looking at above 1 point something for the winner. It's checking things, even in states like Bayelsa, for example. I think I looked at the numbers from Nembe in the previous election. Nembe local government was looking at 60,000. At this last election, Nembe was down to what? Maybe 10,000? Okay? Yeah. So Beavers did its job. However, the question was, why weren't we able to upload? Why weren't you able to upload? The stories from the grapevine is that the presidential election was being attacked, right, by hackers. And that was why INEC shut it down. That is what INEC is claiming. However, the most important thing in this election is the result sheets that was counted, right? The results that were counted in every polling unit and was signed by every presiding, signed by the presiding officer and the agents of the different political parties. Everybody has that slip. Everybody has a copy of that slip. Okay? And if for some reason, at the end of the day, what was uploaded on IREF is now different from what the polling agents have, I believe that these are situations that will be easy for the Supreme Court to overturn. We'll see a lot of results change. I expect some results to change, of course. I expect some results to be thrown out, some to be corrected. But I believe that even when all of those corrections are made, it still doesn't fundamentally change the result of the election. At worst, it does not change. Maybe I'm looking at the most exciting scenario for the people that didn't win. Maybe it forces a runoff. But to say someone won, like Peter Obi won outright, the answer is no. Why am I saying Peter Obi didn't win? For Peter Obi was never going to get the core nuts and the core part of the Northeast. He was never going to touch those areas. Right? He was going to lose and lose badly in those areas. What Peter Obi needed to do was create the Jonathan map of 2011. So Jonathan lost the North decisively in 2011. But what helped Jonathan was that he consolidated the South-South, the Southeast, the Southwest, and the North-Central zone of Nigeria. That is the western part of the North-Central being Kwara, Kogi, and then held on to the eastern parts of the North Central, Plateau, Nasarawa, Abuja, and then the Northeast too, Taraba. He took Taraba in the Northeast, right? And did he take Adamawa? I'm not sure. I think he lost Adamawa. Now, that was something that anybody who wanted to win the election without the support of the North, which Peter Obi didn't have, should have at least attempted to create. Now, if he was able to even attempt to create the Jonathan map of 2015, where Jonathan lost, where Jonathan got the South-South, he got the Southeast, and he got parts of the North Central, right? He got a big, huge part of the North Central, right? Sorry, let me just be very clear now. The 2019 electoral map, okay? The 2019 electoral map, because he didn't do as well. Election results.
Sorry, Abdul.
Okay.
I have few minutes left with you. I know we've been talking a lot on Peter Obi, but what chances do you really think that Peter Obi and Atiku, who was the second person, what chances do you think they have at the Supreme Court?
I think one thing I think for Atiku, right? Atiku didn't win the South-South. He didn't win the Southeast. He didn't win the Southwest. I think the areas that Atiku will be looking at and thinking, I won, and the result was changed. We would have been places like Zamfara, where Asiwaju won. For example, I think Asiwaju also won Gombe. A few places in the north like that. If Atiku can prove it in court that he won those areas, right? If he can prove that he won those areas, then taking those votes away from Asiwaju, especially in those areas where Atiku won, but Asiwaju came really close, and it proves that, look, Asiwaju didn't come close. I beat him decisively. This election he can force this election into a rerun situation.
Okay.
That is Atiku's claim now. For Peter Obi, if Atiku is able to do that, then a runoff the runoff is between Atiku and the man from Lagos. Okay? For Peter, he's a bit harder. If he can prove like that, yes, he won Rivers, he won Akwa Ibom, he won Benue, for example. That doesn't help him get declared winner, but if those two claims, the Atiku claim and the Peter Obi claim, comes together, it forces it to a runoff. But does that put Peter Obi on the ticket of the runoff? That's the question, and I really don't know what the answer is to that question, to be honest, because I don't know how the numbers will go.
Sorry, I have to rush you because of the two other speakers. And please, can the two other speakers send a request in the request box down there? And please, if you have questions, just put your questions in the question sign at the bottom of your page. So to one of the second to the last question, do you think that Tinubu's influence in politics would make the Supreme Court biased to whatever judgment they are going to give? Would there be any bias at play?
We've seen situations with the Supreme Court where judgments have been given and we do not understand these judgments. Now, I'm not a lawyer. You are a lawyer. You guys know better. And I see situations where, for example, Godswill Akpabio, having not run for Senate, somehow gets a Senate ticket. Same thing for Ahmad Lawan in Borno State. These are strange events. That it doesn't seem or look right. And I have not actually gone in details to read the judgments. I don't know what. But those events makes people wonder. For example, we've seen situations in Nigeria where the Supreme Court has ruled against the ruling party. The Supreme Court doesn't always go. The court doesn't always go with this with the ruling party. This is the case. Bayelsa, for example, David Leon won the election in Bayelsa, and it was overturned because his deputy had some issues with his documentation. Okay, we've seen different judgments from the courts, from whether it's El Zakzaki to Nnamdi Kanu to the question, this Sambo Dasuki situations, where the court goes against what the prayers of the federal government. Okay, so, but one thing like I said again, the factor of technology in this election, where the results, everybody has the results, everybody should have a copy of his results. This makes it so difficult for you to say black is white and white is black. It will be impossible and it will be difficult. This is what gives me confidence that, and even if there is someone somewhere who wants to alter things, there is no room for the gray area. It will be quite clear this time around. So I have confidence that the Supreme Court will give the right judgments. However, I just want to say a few things to LP supporters. I think for LP supporters, you guys are the game changers in this election. You have done something that has never been done in the history of Africa. It's never been done. Where a political party that has been put together largely, the momentum of a political party put together roughly 6 to 8 months on an election, goes on to win 12 states, picks up senatorial seats, picks up House of Rep seats, beats the front runner in his home states. This is an amazing thing to happen. Rome was not built in a day. Okay, yeah. The APC itself was not built in a day. Okay, the APC was what was formerly the ACN, built over time with its collaboration with the CPC over a period of time, coming together to then form a national party that was able to take the center. With the momentum that the LP has, if they continue in this direction and start building alliance with the North, because that is where LP failed in this election largely, by being non-existent in the core North. The core North, I'm not talking about North Central now, the core North, the Hausa Fulani heartland. If they can build a handshake there, in the next 4 years, they will make a stronger show of it. So I don't want LP supporters to have a low head. They should hold their heads high. It was amazing what they did in this election.
Awesome. Sorry, let me ask you the last question. What do you think will give Nigeria more credible elections going forward? Just briefly, before I bring up
what I think will help Nigeria have credible elections is simply to follow the best gift I think Muhammad Buhari gave us, this new electoral act. Following it the way it was supposed to go. Now, INEC said IREV, they were not able to upload on IREV, and they had to extend the governorship election by a week. We are looking, we are waiting. I'm going out tomorrow to vote. We are looking, we want to see that everything is being uploaded properly. And this is that in itself will give people the confidence that they are not being cheated.
Thank you so much for your time, Abdul. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to bring up the next speaker to talk to us. He's a legal juggernaut. He's a partner at Zat's Law, and his name is Tenye Akobo. Let's put some fire emojis as we bring him up. Hello, Chairman.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How's your week been? Hope you've been having a
so far so good.
Yeah, it's a privilege to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking out your time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So my question for you, my very first question for you is what's your view on the whole electoral process that played out February 25th at the presidential elections?
Well, Many people have decried or condemned the conduct of the elections. I think elections are not rocket science. It's a very simple process of identifying who is eligible to vote, giving them the opportunity to vote, and counting their ballots. It's not that difficult. The mere fact that it takes us almost a week to count simple results that are counted in different places at the same time, and then it takes us even longer to upload those things to an established system is a bit it's a bit disturbing. So for me, I think the election is what we have seen. The election was a sad chapter in our democratic experience.
Awesome, awesome. So, in your view, do you think that Atiku Abubakar or Peter Obi, who do you think won the
Honestly
elections?
think in my heart of hearts that this election was won by the PDP. And the reason I say this is because of the three political parties. The PDP was the only party that won legitimately, if you look at the numbers, that won across almost across all geopolitical zones. PDP won Osun, even with the rigging or change of results that we saw. PDP also won in states in the South, with the possible exception of the Southeast, but every other part of this country, the PDP won. But that is now academic. You're a lawyer, so you understand the import and purpose of the Electoral Act. To start going to court to find a way to declare yourself a winner is a much harder process to take than to push the process to, a runoff elections. So that would seem like the smartest, outcome.
Awesome, awesome. But you said that PDP had a clear win in most states that they won, but then there were some allegations of children underage voters, and we saw some videos, and people alleged that those voters were Atiku's supporters. What will you say about that?
The one I saw that really shocked me were the two young girls, I think in their 14 and 15-year-olds, that voted for Peter Obi in the Southeast. When I saw that one, I was a bit shocked because for a party that claims to seeking to do something differently, that was a bit sickening to imagine that they will have young girls that were underage, professing to be underage, but seeking to go out there to vote. The best consolation I would take for that is that people have become too enthusiastic, and would allow little children vote. But that has always been at the expense of seeming a bit too self-absorbed. It's always been part of our experience, electoral experience as a country. And it's something that permeates every part of our lives, and from every geopolitical zone, whether it's the Southwest, the Southeast, you have people that are not eligible to vote going out there to vote. So it's not a thing that is particular to PDP or that is an Atiku problem. I was taken aback when I saw it, from Labour Party. It was quite shocking. And the same thing too, if you dig into too, you probably also see too with the APC. But as far as this election is concerned, that was is a much minimal or less significant norm in our experience.
So is there a problem with the registration process or the accreditation process? What do you think can be done to stop and mitigate children voting at elections? I saw a very little boy in the north, and the police said that they could not tell a child by looking at the appearance. So what will you say will help to mitigate some these issues
Okay.
that
First of all, at the point of accreditation, you can't do anything anymore. If a person presents you their voter's card and tells you, "I'm here to vote," and everything is correct, you have to allow the person vote. You cannot disenfranchise them at that point. It's the point of registration that we're having all these problems.
Yeah.
So a solution, as just speaker said, is we have to invest a lot in technology. Technology is the one area that removes the human factor from how these things are managed and helps us to arrest some of all these, setbacks, that we're seeing. So my own estimation is going to be that we find creative ways of investing in technology in ways whereby when people are going to register to vote, these things are linked up with NIN or with BVN or anything. So through that process, you can capture or sieve out those that shouldn't naturally be eligible to vote.
So am I still here? Am I still here?
awesome. Thank you
Yes.
Okay.
so much. Yes.
So I agree to my brother.
I agree to you too, bro.
Yes. I just wanted to ask a question because I did an analysis of the election before it was conducted, and from the at least from the information I was getting, right, and perception around the country, I honestly did feel that Atiku Abubakar was going to consolidate the North. So the question now is, why do you think he didn't consolidate the North? Or do you think there were some malpractice situations going on there? What happened? Because if Atiku Abubakar consolidates the North in this election, right, there's no path to victory for Asiwaju.
Yes.
So
finish. Sorry, I apologize.
yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. I just wanted to know what's your opinion on that?
Okay. From analysis I have seen, it was clear that on the 9th of the election, that's Saturday night leading to Sunday morning, the North indeed was consolidated against a government that had sent them into penury. They voted to stay alive and they voted for PDP, for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. What we saw after that was a change of results. The other day I saw a news article of at Tedor Peterside, the gentleman's Stanbic IBTC, talking about how Labour Party was the only party that suffered vote configuration. I don't think that's entirely true. In fact, it's not true. The PDP also suffered it, particularly in the Northwest. We saw our numbers mutilated. In fact, to the extent whereby we were leading with hundreds of thousands in some states in the Northwest, and overnight those got shrunk to either 6,000 in the case of Katsina or reversed completely, whereby the APC won. And that is what we saw. And that is also the reason why the candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, is invested in ensuring that the right thing is done. And this time around, I don't think people have an appetite to remain silent again in the face of this robbery, quite frankly.
Thank you so much. TY, I would like to ask you, in light of the failure to transmit the electoral results from the polling unit, is that substantial enough to have an election void? Is that substantial?
No, it's not at all. The legal standard is sufficient compliance with the law. And technology or failure to abide by technological standards, it would be a bit difficult to argue that that meets up with the definition of failure to comply reasonably. We laid down law. And we also saw a judgment by an high court, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, saying that INEC is not bound to upload, those results. And that we're seeing. The issue that we're having now is, and to go back to the objections by Senator Dino Melaye at the point of collation, Dino's point was, if you are telling us, like in the case of Ekiti, at the time that they were announcing Ekiti, Ekiti was already uploaded. What Dino was asking for is, Ekiti is uploaded. Can you verify to us that you've compared what these people have given you hard copy versus what was uploaded online? Because for the case of presidential election, the INEC chairman is a returning officer. As a returning officer, he has the last say before results are officially announced. So at that point, the law gives him the right to cancel polling units where he feels that the right things were not done. And that was what Dino's answer was. And I thought that was a bit disturbing, because the chairman had promised that at the end of taking all the states, he will address all the concerns. But he waited until many people were asleep, went ahead and declared the candidate of the APC, president-elect. We are, where people were, you don't do things that way. And that is why people are very frustrated, because you cannot, in states where the results are uploaded versus what you are reading out, there's a huge disparity in the numbers, and the Electoral Act is very clear. Where there's cases of overvoting, the law enables the returning officer to cancel the vote of that polling unit. In this case, the INEC chairman could reject that place. And we see that when the margin between cancelled results is greater than the difference between the parties, you do a runoff. It's like that. So that's where we are.
Fair enough. So I'm just going to speed it up because we have one more speaker. What chances do you think Atiku Abubakar has at the Supreme Court? What are his chances? Do you think the influence of Tinubu will play a part in the Supreme Court dispensing justice? Do you think justice will be done?
As my brother, the previous speaker said, the courts over the past 2 years have first of all, I should declare that far be it for me to condemn the bench from the bar, as you know very well. But also,
of course,
the courts have given us few judgments that, as he rightly stated, were against the desire and wishes of the ruling party, like the Naira one, which is the most recent, where we saw them, condemn, in fact, the conduct of the president and the CBN. We've also seen them give some very stellar judgments that will stand the test of time. Our hope and our prayer is that the court continues to massage itself with that grip of courage and do what is right, because we cannot afford to set this election down as a yardstick for how elections will be done, because it has become so clear that the new mantra is now just win and ask everybody to go to court. So we don't know what the future is going to make out of that statement, but it was a bit too brazen for me. So I think the chances of Atiku and Peter Obi, because I know he's also challenging the election. I know he rushed too quickly to say that he won the results. Now that his people are going through the numbers, they are seeing that actually they didn't win. So what they are now arguing against is now the process, which is that the election should be cancelled because the right things were not done. So we expect that both legal teams will put the best of hands and the best of minds heads together to challenge this abnormality that we have seen being called an election.
Also, it indeed takes a lot of courage for those justices to dispense justice. And just lastly, before I let my two speakers go, what do you think can be done to improve our electoral experience going forward? Are we going to be stuck in this cycle? We have a new electoral act. Is it good enough? Do we need to amend anything in the act? What can be done to have a better electoral experience?
I think it was yesterday I saw a news article where Aisha Yesufu was talking about why we have staggered elections. I quite agree with her. All we needed to do was add another ballot box or 2 ballot papers to the one we had, making it 5 slips that we would have printed on, and all the elections would have been done. There's no need to have presidency governors stagger them around. We don't need to have that. everything together, and then let's invest more in technology. This process where we are using technology to accredit people but not to vote, the crime has now moved now to the voting side and the tabulation side. So initially it was with the accreditation side where, as he said, we were seeing crazy numbers. I'm sure if Beavers was to be used in 2015, PDP would still be in power today, because those numbers we saw from the Kardashian states were mind-bending, you know. But so if we deploy technology as you're going to vote, once the system accredits you, a screen pops up where you can actually select the ballot you want to vote, tap and screen, and it tabulates everything, just goes. Remove that human factor. And the good part again is we're losing way too much lives in the process of deciding who is going to protect our lives. Coppers are dying, voters are dying. These things are just unheard of. Election takes more life than even armed robbery does, you know, in 1 year. So we need to find a way to solve that problem. And the only way that I can think of, as my brother said, is to subject these things more to technology, remove the human factor, let people go out there, exercise their right without, and the result will be out in no time. As your voting is tabulating at the back end, you know, once everything is done, the result is out, and then you just check for glitch and all those things to just be sure that all those things are not hampering. But that is it. And also to go back, the whole narrative of, oh, INEC was attacked and they turned off server, I beg to differ. In fact, I consider it such a very brazen insult on our intelligence. You knew this was going to happen. You know, they told us they test ran this whole process, and now you're coming back to tell us, oh, you had to turn it off. These things were hosted on Amazon. From what I hear, Amazon is a very reliable web system or something, cloud system, where people save all those things.
Yeah.
So hear people say that, oh, the system was attacked and everything, is a bit sad. And I don't know if this is my last question, but just to add this final point, the 25% in the FCT is a major requirement, because the two leading parties didn't get that. Okay. There is a need for enough, and that's what the petition is also going to state from both sides. Actually, that's PDP and Labour Party.
Sorry, can I, if I may jump in, because I'm not a lawyer and I want to ask a question. Okay, I've heard the opinion of my brother here saying that the 25% in the FCT for a winner is a major requirement. You must win the FCT, even if you get 24 states. Am I clear on that?
You must get 25% in the FCT, not win. Yes.
You must get 25% in the FCT, even if you got maybe 30 states. Even if you got 25% in 30 states,
absolutely.
If you don't get 25% in FCT, you can't be declared winner.
Yes.
I would like to have your opinion. I would like to have your opinion on that, because I spoke to a lawyer who told me that is not the case.
Let me
explain. You know, who says the FCT is because FCT is not a state, but in this setting is recognized as a state.
Okay.
So I don't know, what's your opinion, Mr. Ephraim?
Let me explain that. Okay, sorry, finish Ephraim. Sorry.
It will be there for the interpretation of the Supreme Court. But what is going to happen, that I think it is far-fetched and illogical, in my opinion, to expect that a party who does not get up to 25% in the FCT, because it's the capital, should not be announced as the winner. So we need the Supreme Court be looking at the intention of the legislative when they pass that.
What I was going to say is two things. First of all, on the language issue, in the case between Umaru Yaradua and Buhari, the court actually ruled that the FCT is a requirement for you to get 25%. If you read that, it's quite there. That's number one. Number two, tomorrow, 36 states are going to go out to vote for their state governors. The FCT doesn't. And that's because the president is functionally the governor of the FCT. If you look at the law, it says the executive power is vested in the president. So that's why if you look at the state law, it says also that for a state governor to win, he has to have 25% in 2/3 of the local governments in his state. That's why getting 25% in the FCT is such a major requirement because the president is the governor. That power is what he delegates to the FCT minister, that the FCT minister uses to administer the FCT as the administrator. So that's number 2. Number 3, the law says you need to get 25% in 2/3 of the states and the FCT. Just take this example for the face of it. If you had 100 cars outside and they tell you 100 of those cars are Toyota cars, then there's one Volvo car there. They tell you, my dear brother, go and bring me 25% of the 100 cars and the Volvo. If you bring 26 of those cars, would you have brought the exact car? No. And Volvo, there is a distinct explanation that the Volvo must be included in it. So the position of the law, to my mind, is quite clear and it's unambiguous. It's just that for convenience now, people are going around trying to get it. But for those 3 points, the president is the governor of the FCT. The same requirement that the governors have to meet is the same reason why he has to have 25% in the FCT. Secondly, Umaru case where the Supreme Court has said that the FCT is distinct and there's a requirement for that. And thirdly, the English is very clear, and the FCT. That's my position.
Can I just add something?
Thank you.
Can I just add something?
Because of time, I thank two of you for your great contribution to this conversation. I would like you to try and log out from your end, but don't go anywhere while I'll get to talk to us on the technology aspect. Thank you so much for your time. Amazing contributions, amazing conversation going on. I would like to bring Tolu up to help us understand more about the technology and the law as a union. And I hope, hello, Mr.
My brother,
Tolu, how you doing?
How are you?
Tolu is laughing at me.
I'm good, bro. It's like a mini reunion. It's nice to see you on a Friday night. Yeah, so you're having a good week, by the way.
As usual, but thank God.
Yeah, so you've been following the conversation, and I start with the question: what did you think about the electoral process on the 25th of February?
Very, very summarized. It was a disappointment. It was a disappointment because the government invested so much into making it the dream process, the process that would work. I mean, as Nigerians, we understand that a lot of our process.
Sorry, I think Tolu has to. Let me try and add him back again to this conversation. He was trying to explain to us why this was one of the worst elections.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Tolu, can you hear me?
Like I was laying the groundwork. A lot of our processes don't work in Nigeria, but there was a specific intentionality that had to do with the electoral process stemming from the 2022 Electoral Act and a lot of innovations therein. But what we now found was that there was a departure, whether intentionally or unintentionally, whether systematically or technically, there was a departure from that. From those innovations, and that really cooled all the work that had gone into the preparation of it leading up to these elections. And I mean, I'm not going to touch on the results or who was declared winner. I'm just going to stick to the process. I keep asking myself, what was the point of all the technological innovations if we will not follow them to the latter? What was the point of rolling out all those machines? What was the point of training people, a lot of manpower going into it, if we would just decide on the last day that, look, there's some problem with the network somewhere, let's just announce it using the old paper, it's anti-Semitic and it's ridiculous, to say the least.
I totally get your point, and that brings me to the next question. Do you think the beavers improve the credibility in any way? Because we could see that figures are a bit lower now than it has been before. So do you think it's because people have jackpot out of Nigeria, or did the beavers play in improving the credibility?
I would answer this question in yes and no. And yeah, you'll find that interesting. But it should have improved the credibility of the process, right? But the applicability of the use of beavers, as we have seen in Osun State, is what is now causing more problems. And we will see more of those problems when the election petition for the presidential election starts. Now, ordinarily, I would say that yes, it has reduced the problems of over registration or under registration or accreditation. The list goes on. But what that now does is it has transferred the problem from that point to the voting points. You cannot introduce technology halfway and then expect a very holistic result. No. What should have been done is find a way to minimize and reduce human interference as much as possible. I mean, it's ridiculous to have. I want to go and vote now. I'm being accredited using a technological tool, but I'm still going to watch somebody count my votes by saying 1, 2, 3. It's just a bit ridiculous. So if you ask me, right, it's reduced some factors of the irregularities, but it then created bigger problems for the electoral process, thereby calling into question more newer issues with regards to the credibility of our electoral process. That would be my answer. I hope I'm not legalistic about it, but that would be my answer.
No, that's a good answer, because I was wondering, speaking about newer issues, now we have the transmission of the votes from the polling unit, which was specified in the Electoral Act. Do you think that is substantial enough to render this election void?
First of all, the issue of electronic transmission is not referenced in the Electoral Act. What the Electoral Act says is that the INEC reserves the right or shall determine how the votes or how transmission will be done. And that is then taken up in the guidelines, that was prepared leading up to the elections. Now, like TY said, there's a quote that has said that INEC is not bound to transmit electronically. However, I would say, in my humble opinion, that while it does not constitute substantial, or it does not contravene substantial compliance, it leaves little to desire with compliance with the letter of the law, because that guideline or those guidelines derive their flavor from the Electoral Act. So technically speaking, it could be said that they did not comply fully with the letter of the law. I hope you understand the bifurcation I'm trying to draw. But whether that non-compliance is substantial enough, okay, let me make it as practical as possible. That lack of electronic transmission, does it affect the eventual votes cast? Does it affect the tallying of the votes, the reporting of the votes? Does it really affect it in a way as to truncate the entire process? If you ask me, the answer is no. Would I love to see where they had complied fully with the technological innovations they introduced? Definitely. But to suggest that the lack of electronic transmission is a substantial compliance, is a substantial non-compliance issue as to warrant a cancellation of the entire electoral process, I think anybody that is pushing such narrative is being a bit at large with their intentions.
So what chances do you think that Atiku or Peter Obi have at the Supreme Court? Just in your own opinion, do you think they have any real chance at overturning the outcome?
It's a court of law. Everybody will plead their case, argue their case to the best of their lawyers' abilities and the facts available to them at the time. And based on the strength of that, I am trusting in the genius of our judiciary to be able to give very, concrete decisions in regards to this. However, if I were to speak to the chances, I believe strongly that whether it's Atiku Abubakar or Peter Obi, they stand a better chance in challenging the issue of the FCT getting the 25% like TY discussed, because let me make it as simple as possible. It leaves a little to desire if you say that the person that's supposed to be the popular votes, the most popular public servant, does not win his seat.
Yeah.
But that is an aside. It now goes further to say, I am the most popular. Assume I'm the president. I don't even get up to 25% of my seat. This is not law. This is just plain logic and facts. I mean, what does that? It's like a governor in his own state not winning 25% of, for example, a governor not winning Ikeja.
Obviously.
Governor Sanwo-Olu not winning Ikeja. I don't know if you understand. Or the prime minister, the prime minister of the UK not winning London. Those are very, very little to desire in the popularity, quote unquote, of that candidate. Now, coming back to the law, Section 134 is very clear. 25% of 2/3 of the state and the FCT. I mean, we've overflowed this issue, right? It's inclusive. It would have said 25% of 2/3 of the state and in the FCT. That is my alternative interpretation to it, using simple English language. I mean, that's because the position of the FCT is in such a disadvantaged space as to the representation they have. Genuinely, this is all politics aside. If you look at the representation the FCT has, they only have one senator. Most other states, if not all other states, have 3 senators. They don't have a chief executive officer, a chief security officer that is elected. As you know, as a lawyer, the governor is a chief executive officer, is also the chief security officer of the state. Security votes and stuff like that, they do not seem to benefit from it. I mean, I may be wrong, but they do not seem to benefit from stuff like that simply because there is no elected governor. But Section 300 of the Constitution is clear. The executive powers of the governor shall be invested in the president. And the same goes for the National Assembly, and the same goes for the High Court of the FCT, and so on and so forth. So when you systematically disenfranchise the voters or the voters and the indigents of the FCT from electing their governor, I think it's only fair, it's only equitable to have them have. I don't want to make it a superior, because a lot of arguments have been coming that are we trying to say the FCT is superior? No. We're just trying to bring them up to scale with all other states, because Section 300 says the FCT shall be treated as a state and then lists the qualification. One of it, interestingly, is the role of the president as the governor. One of it. So in giving life to that provision, I think it is important for the Supreme Court to consider that provision and interpret it. So far, there has not been any conjunctive interpretation of that section vis-a-vis the Electoral Act and a lot of other sections. I heard TY mention Yar'Adua and Buhari. I've not read that case. I'll go back and read it. But so far, I've not seen any case that specifically interprets this. That section has been interpreted with regards to other things. But 134 with regards to voting, with regards to elections, has not been interpreted, quite specifically. So if you ask me, that should be a focal point. Of course, along with all other manifest irregularities that happened during the electoral process. I do not want to go into that. That would just bring it to politics.
Yeah, I think those are strong points that the ruling party will have to be a little bit afraid of when going to court. So just lastly, I would like to ask, how can we improve our electoral process from the technology point of view? You've made mention of electronic voting. Wouldn't there be issues of hackers and malfunction of the system? What's the fear of just going purely electronic?
Okay. The goal for now, if I'm being any kind of realistic, is not to go 100% electronic, right? The goal for now would be to reduce human interference to the barest minimum. So when I say this, I mean, for example, you can have a supervisor at a polling unit to supervise, but that's just about it. Not to count votes, not to accredit the polling booths for that. I don't know if you understand my point. So it's to reduce human interference. I do not believe, I'm one of those people that do not believe that technology can function in a vacuum without human interference. No. But it works to reduce that interference to the barest minimum. And that's what I think that Nigeria should work on. Now, with what we have now, the BVAS and IRF, I think that there should be a decentralization of the transmission process. Now, what we have right now is a transmission from the polling unit using the BVAS machines to the backend servers. And for such a large scale, we have over 176,000 polling units. For such a large scale transmission, even if the server is well equipped, even if the machines are well equipped, traffic happens. And we all know what happens when there's traffic. I mean, we all live in Nigeria, so we all know what happens when there's traffic. And that traffic would affect the quality or the rate or several things in that transmission process. So what I would suggest is a decentralization such that the same way you transmit manually, that should be transmitted, but in a much more or in a much less regulated space. So from the polling unit to the state collation centers, and then from there on to the IRF backend servers. That way there is no such lag or delay when it comes to, oh, we've not gotten this result, oh, we've not gotten that result. You're sure at some point it is on one server somewhere that can be accessed. So for example, if there's a state collation, so for example, for Lagos State, all the polling units transmit to the Lagos State server, right? We all still have access to that server. It's not an official result, but we all have access to that server. You can view it real time, you can collate your results and do whatever you want with it before it's then transmitted to the backend servers or INEC. What you have in that is there is no issue of, we're still waiting for that result, like in the Ekiti one or in the Abuja one. You have it such that the transparency is maintained one way or another. So it's not like, oh, somebody is somewhere trying to erase or tamper with some result while they are saying that they are waiting for the result. It is important to stress that you can use technology to reinstate that integrity test and that transparency. Because trust me, in an electoral process where there is no transparency, where there is no integrity, trust me, whatever the outcome is, even if it's Nelson Mandela that wins the election of Nigeria, people will still complain. Somebody will complain if there is no transparency to that process. Now, authentication in electoral processes, we need the voters.
Sorry, I think there's a glitch in.
Sorry, am I back?
Yeah, I can hear you much better now. Yes, say that again.
I was saying that in addition to the technological advancements, I think that we need to add another layer of I won't call it innovation, but innovation to, better the process of elections in Nigeria, and that would be the voters' interest in the process, and that is coming from the Labour Party. I'm really, really impressed with what they've done. Anybody that says otherwise, I'm sorry, that person is just a hater. But I'm really impressed with what they've done. A lot of the Labour Party guys monitored their votes. And that is something we all need to take out of it. The time of, don't let them kill you. I mean, it's a legitimate concern in Nigeria, sadly.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I heard that 4 people died in Ibadan as a result of political clashes stemming from tomorrow's elections. So it's still a legitimate concern, and people still need to be careful. But what I've seen is that the people regulated that fear in a bid to protect their votes. People were taking pictures of the result sheets, were taking videos of the counting. Those things would create a citizen's level of compliance on the part of the INEC, because there will be a consciousness in their minds that, look, people are watching. At the very least, 1 polling unit here, 2 polling units here, pockets of polling units at a time. You'll be able to ensure that, look, these votes are being counted and are being counted right. That way, you'll be able to shift. I mean, it will be very difficult for anybody to, whether at the ballot box or whether at the collation center or wherever, to be able to rig any of these elections. So I think those 2 things are the ways, at least for now, we can substantially improve. And the third thing is, I like to say that elections are not complete until the election petition tribunals are done, because as we have seen, a lot of states are not regular now. There's no election in Osun State, Ondo States, and several others because of the election petition tribunal. So I like to say that the process is not complete until the election petition tribunal. So what I've observed is that a lot of our jurists, while they're brilliant, very brilliant, they lag when it comes to catching up with certain issues, and technology is one of them. So I believe that there needs to be an investment into the education of the judiciary when it comes to issues regarding technology as it relates to election, because trust me, there's going to be a lot. We're going to all see it together. There's going to be a lot of rigmaroling when it comes to the interpretation and the application of the technological advancements in BVAS and IREV to the traditional model that they are all used to in electoral processes. Take, for example, the case in Osun State, Adeleke and Oyetola, or Oyetola and Adeleke, where the basis of that petition, the basis of the victory the APC got in that petition was as a result of a back-end report, the report of the back-end server. Now, breaking it down very simply, imagine that I type up a report on my laptop. The original report is on my laptop, right? Or I do a story on my laptop, and then somebody else does a report of that story. You request that report, and you go about saying, look, this is what this is the story Tolu has put out, or this is the story Tolu has put out. That is obviously not the story. It's just a report of the story. It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing. You have summarized data into a report, and then using that report to declare some overvoting in some places, no overvoting in some places. I think that it shows very manifest lack of knowledge when it comes to the issues of technology and electoral processes. And it was sad to see, especially given that the Electoral Act is clear. What determines a winner or a loser is the Form EC8, not the back-end server. The back-end server is not contemplated by the Electoral Act whatsoever. Like I said, it's only introduced in the guidelines. But believe it or not, that was the basis for the judgment in National State Election Petition Tribunal, which is obviously on appeal now. But it's such nuances that creates a problem in our jurisprudence, because if that judgment is upheld, it creates a problem forever, where the back-end server now becomes the law, becomes stronger than the Form EC80 that is backed by the Electoral Act. these are the issues I feel like they need to address now before it gets too late.
Those are very brilliant contributions, especially the gap in knowledge of the judiciary when it comes to technology. I want to thank you so much for taking out time from your schedule to speak with us. I've learned so much. I was thinking that is it possible if the states can vote one after the other, would that improve anything? And if they can be like cameras, like CCTV at every polling unit, would that help us any way?
Technology is not infallible. By no means. Technology is not infallible. It has its own risks. TY is right when he said that the servers used by INEC are AWS. They belong to Amazon. Interestingly, AWS is also used by Pentagon in the US. And I want to register the implication of that. Pentagon is one of the most secure buildings in the country, in the world rather. For them to use AWS, it is very secure. And I hope you understand where I'm going with this.
Yeah, so INEC could
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Anybody that wants to draw that inference, they're free to draw it. But what I'm saying is, right, no matter the structures you put in place, there will be a problem somewhere. The goal is not to eliminate them, like I said. The goal is to minimize them.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of having states vote one by one, while it is innovative, will constitute a logistical nightmare. Because what you then have, just as in the case of reporting of results, is that, we've not voted in this place, or we've not voted in that place, so you then have the issue of results all over again. Because they've not voted, there's no results. Then elections will be spanning over months, not even days now, months. It took 2 days for elections to be done in Abuja. In my estate, I was aware that it took 2 days.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if my estate is just an example, it took a lot. And the population of Abuja, at least the registered and accredited voters, they're not a lot compared to places like Lagos and Rivers. Now imagine if you now have them staggered and lined up like that, you're going to create a logistical nightmare. What can be done is an aggregation, like I explained earlier. Everybody votes at the same time. We've not gotten to the stage where we can say, like we do with the NBA, you sit in your house and you vote, and there's a time frame for that. We've not gotten to that stage yet. I hope we get there Sunday. But it's a simple thing, Ephraim. It's actually very simple. You go on to your ballot. Everybody has their papers already. You know where you're voting. I don't know why it should create such a problem, a nightmare. I was at the polling unit for the presidential election. It was a nightmare for, where am I supposed to vote? Am I supposed to be here? All that. All of that can be eliminated. You know this is where you're going. It's like I'm going to school. I know I'm going to school. I'm going to learn in school. You go there, you vote. Your vote is transmitted either to the state servers if it is implemented, or directly to the central servers of INEC. And if by any means, I'm aware that the Beavers machine is capable of tabulating real time. And when I say real time, I'm not saying that they're going to take pictures of some paper somewhere. I'm saying the votes will be imputed onto the machine and signed and then transmitted onwards. I'm aware that it's capable of that. I've been privileged to have some access to the manuals. So I'm aware that is possible. So, I mean, what really stops you and I from going to polling booths? We get accredited, we vote, and it comes straight, real time. You can literally see it as you vote, and then it's uploaded, it tallies. This polling unit has one more vote. So from 100, for example, it goes to 101. Those things they're not rocket science. It's possible. I mean, you and I do it for NBA elections every 2 years. And exactly,
from our house,
if we can do it, how many lawyers are we? Dead and alive, over 100,000 lawyers. So if we can do that at such minuscule scale with such little budget, I mean, budget was, I don't want to go into that, but it is possible. That's the point. It
Yeah,
is very,
budget is
yeah, it is
depressing.
possible. So I think that the goal will be to, one, minimize human interference and limit the glitches here and there, and then find a way to decentralize the servers if there will be some issues with transmission. I don't think there should be, but if there will be some issues with transmission, decentralize it. You know, the same way mobile phones work, they connect to the closest tower, and that one then does an onward communication. If you connect to the closest
Yeah.
server in your state or in your local government, and that then does an onward communication to INEC or whatever, it will be easier and it will be more transparent than that. And everybody will be able to monitor the process real time.
Thank you so much, Lolo. I really appreciate speaking with you. Thank you for
Thank you,
coming
my
to
brother.
Hot Takes, and I wish you a very
Thank you, my
pleasant
brother. Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody that tuned in and watched till the end. Those who didn't will have the opportunity to see the amazing and brilliant contribution from our guests. Do have an amazing night and see you guys next Friday on Hot Takes. Thank you so